Okay, so now let's look at the pattern sequencer, which is the default display for the top area of Spark, and this is a key part of Spark, the pattern sequencer. Okay, there it is. The sequencer has got 16 rows or tracks, one track for each of the 16 instruments of Spark. Okay, and each individual track, one for each instrument, is a TR sequencer. So you can actually put your notes in here for any instrument. Okay, and the advantage of doing it here rather than down here is that as you put notes in here in the pattern for any instrument, as you do that, you can see where the other instruments are playing in the pattern relative to the notes you're putting in for any other instrument. Okay, so 16 instrument tracks, one for each instrument. Okay, and each track has got its own solo, its own mute, and a plus button to open up the controller lane. Okay, now you'll notice that one of the tracks is highlighted in brown, and that is the currently selected instrument track. So if I select, for example, instrument 6 is now my currently selected instrument, jump to the pattern sequencer, and Spark automatically scrolls that track for the currently selected instrument to the top of the list, highlighted in brown, ready to go. Okay, I'll choose instrument 1 again, go back to the pattern sequencer, and instrument 1 is at the top, highlighted in brown. Okay. Now the other thing you'll notice is that there's this vertical line here, this brown vertical line. That is the playhead position, and wherever it stops, if there is an unlit note it's brown, and if there's a lit note, a white note, it becomes orange, and that's just the playhead moving across the pattern. Okay. Okay, so a couple of cool things we can do with this pattern sequencer is each one of these tracks is an individual instrument pattern within the pattern we're working on, and the current pattern is A1. Okay. So I can, for example, grab the kick drum track and just drag it away with the left mouse, and hey presto, look, there is a MIDI file of only the pattern for the kick drum. Brilliant. Or, for example, this is track 3, the hi-hat. I just drag that track out of the sequencer, the pattern sequencer, and let go of it. Hey presto, there is a MIDI file of just the hi-hat pattern. Fantastic. And of course you can drag these individual instrument patterns out of your sequencer and drop them directly onto the tracks in Sonar, Cubase, Logic, etc. or to any disk location you want. Okay. Other cool things you can do is you can copy the pattern of one instrument to another instrument. So for example, this is the hi-hat here, let's solo it. Okay. Now I want to copy the hi-hat pattern to the kick pattern. I just grab the hi-hat track and drop it onto the kick track. Do you want to copy sequencer track 3, which is the hi-hat, to 1, which is the kick? Yes, I do. And it's copied the hi-hat pattern to the kick. There you go. There's my hi-hat, and let's copy that pattern to the kick. Wunderbar. Okay. So that's kind of the basics of the sequencer. We'll look at the control lane next, but before we do, and all the tools in that, but before we do, let's check out all this stuff across the top of the pattern sequencer. On the left here is all the parameters for the pattern. The time signature, the resolution, the amount of bars and the amount of steps, and then over here is your step buttons. Okay, currently we've got a 32 step pattern, so the 2 of the buttons are active. I can use these to look at the 2 different cycles of 16 in my current pattern, which is 32 steps in length. That's the first cycle of 16, that's the second cycle of 16. And of course, if my pattern has got more steps, like say 64 steps, then more buttons become active, and I can look at the first cycle of 16, the second cycle, the third and the fourth cycle of 16 in my pattern. Okay, put it back to 32 steps in length. Okay, now these bits here, they set up all the parameters for the pattern. Okay, currently we've got a 4/8 pattern at 16ths, and it's 4 bars long, 32 total steps. Okay, now these are all interrelated, these parameters, so if I change one, it always changes another one. So for example, 4 bars, 32 steps. If I change the amount of bars to 2, it just halves the length of my pattern in steps, 16 steps. Put it back to 4. goes back to 32 steps. Change the amount of bars to 8. It doubles the length of my total steps to 64, but because now we've got 8 bars, but everything else stays the same. Okay, put it back to 4 bars. Goes back to 32 steps. Same with the steps. Change it to 16, it reduces to 2 bars. Change it to 64, it increases to 8 bars, etc. Okay, next the resolution. We've got a 4-bar pattern, 32 steps. 32 steps, 4-bar pattern at 16ths in 4/8. So let's change the resolution to 8ths. I'm going to half the resolution. It halves the amount of steps in my pattern, but I've still got 4 bars, but it's half the tempo because I've halved the resolution. Put it back to 16ths, it goes back to 32 steps, normal tempo, but still 4 bars. I'll increase my resolution to 30 seconds and it doubles the total amount of steps, but I still have a 4-bar pattern, but it's doubled the tempo. Okay, put it back to 16ths. And the time signature, we're in 4/8, 4-bar pattern, 32 steps. If I make it 4/4, it simply increases the amount of steps because I've reduced the subdivisions per beat. So I've still got a 4-bar pattern, but it's now 64 steps in length, but the same tempo. Make it 4/16, it halves the length of my pattern in total steps, but it's still a 4-bar pattern at the same tempo. Okay. And you can do all your triplets, of course. Put it in 3 time. 2 bars at 3 time gives me a last step of 12. You can do all your triplets, or 1 bar gives me a last step of 6, etc. And you can do all your TR traditional last step jobby, like for example, put it into traditional good old tempo and time signature of 4/4. Sorry, not tempo, time signature of 4/4, and a resolution of 16ths. And I can set the last step to whatever I like. There's a last step of 12, just like with a TR sequencer, or a last step of 14. So I can do the whole last step thing like with a TR. Okay, wunderbar. Okay, so let's put it to 4/8 in 16ths, 2 bars in length, 16 steps, so it doesn't cycle around. For what I'm going to show you next. Okay, now let's look at the controller area and all the tools in the controllers. Okay, but before we do that, let's select a different instrument. I'm going to select instrument number 6. There it is. And if I go now to the pattern sequencer, it automatically has scrolled track 6 for the currently selected instrument number 6 to the top of the list, highlighted in brown, ready to go. Let me take these 2 out of solo. Okay, let's put the tom track into solo. There we go. And let's put some notes in for the tom. There it is. Let's open up the control lane for it. There we are. Okay, now let's check the tools out. We've got 3 tools: pencil tool, line tool, and eraser. Pencil tool. Let's choose, well, there's the default controller, velocity. When you drop in a TR note, it puts in the note at a velocity of 64. After which, with the pencil, you can adjust the velocity of any note to be whatever you like. Okay. Okay, let's choose a controller. Cutoff. Pencil. We can put in cutoff on any beat like that. What it does is it puts in this block with 4 little subdivisions, or we can just draw with the pencil like any shape we want. But it does this block thing, putting in the controllers in these blocks, and each block, 1 to a step, has got 4 subdivisions. Okay, rub it out with the eraser. Same with the line tool, works the traditional way. Click, hold down and drag downhill to do a downhill thing, let go, click, hold and drag uphill to do uphill. Click, drag while holding, let go, click, drag while holding, etc. But again, it puts in these big blocks, 1 block per beat, divided up by 4 little sub ladders. Eraser, rub it out. But check this out. If I get the pencil tool, put in 1 controller block on 1 beat. If I hold down Command, I can now edit the subdivisions like that. So now I've done a downhill filter move for the cutoff just on this 1 beat. Otherwise, you hold down Command and you're just drawing it you're just drawing at a finer resolution like that. Hold down Command, you get the finer resolution. Put some more notes in. rub it out. It's the same with the line tool. Hold down Command, click, hold and drag, finer resolution. Command, click and drag, let go, Command, click and drag. Okay, so Command gets you into the finer resolution for the controllers, and what's cool about that is that, for example, if I choose pitch, get the pencil tool, put pitch on that note, it's got these 4 little subdivisions, and if I want to I can hold down Command and make a pitch alteration for that instrument on that one beat. So I can do a little pitch thing there. Yeah? Okay. Rub that out. So that's the tools. Okay, now let's look at the actual controller list. Let's get the pencil tool, let's draw in some pitch. Pitch. Choose another controller, cut off. Let's put some cut off in. I'm going to do it at the fine resolution by holding down Command. Woo. Little cut off sweep like that. And we've got the cut off and we've got the pitch. Here they go. And let's put some pan as well. Pan, here we go. Do this at coarse resolution. Okay, so we've got 3 active controllers. Any active controllers are ticked in your list, so you can easily see which ones are active. You can choose any of those controllers and turn it off with the switch. Now the pan is disabled, look. It's still in the pattern, but it's turned off. Choose another controller. Cut off. Turn it off. It's still in the pattern, but it won't play back. Now only the pitch is playing back. Select it. Turn it off. No more pitch. Playback. But it's still in our pattern. So now we've got 3 disabled controllers. Now if you've got a bunch of disabled controllers, maybe there's other ones that are active still, but you've got these 3 disabled ones and you want to turn them all back on. Well, yeah, you can select them one by one and turn them on manually like that. Select the next one, turn it on manually. But another thing you can do is turn them all off again. You've got some active controllers disabled and you want to just re-enable those active controllers, and a quick way to do it is just turn all controllers off. They're all turned off using the all button here. Turn them all back on and it just enables them all. So we can also turn all controllers off and turn them all on anytime we want to just turn off all the controllers on a track. They're all disabled now, and now they're all enabled, and individual ones we turn on and off like that. Select them, turn them off. Disabled, select it, turn it on. Okay, so that's how the controllers work. Okay, now let's just get rid of these. Once the controllers are gone, it's no longer ticked. Okay, no more controllers. No more active controllers, except for velocity, of course. Okay, so now let's look at the actual controller list. Okay, and this controller list is always in the exact same order for every single instrument track. Always the same order. Okay, and it begins with 3 sequencer specific controllers: velocity, repeat and shift, and these are note controllers, nothing to do with the parameters of the instrument. Okay, velocity is obviously velocity, and that's followed by repeat, and this order is always the same for every instrument. Okay, so the next parameter after velocity is repeat. Okay, now repeat, I'll just drop some of the notes out. Repeat is quite cool. It does like a flam effect. Let's put some repeat on this note there. Okay, and at the lowest level it does a flam. Push it up and it does a roll. Higher and it starts to become more of an intense roll. You know, all the way until it does a tearing sound, you know. Okay, so cool for putting in flams. I haven't tried it as an effect yet. Maybe it does really cool of smearing type effects on sustained sounds or audio parts or something. I haven't tried that yet, but it does flams anyway, at least. Okay, after repeat comes shift, another note specific controller, and this is brilliant. Okay, shift allows us to offset any note in time. And that's good because obviously when we're dropping notes in using TR sequencing, they're always exactly on the beat. And yeah, I know we can put it into record the Spark, and we can turn off quantize, and we can record in patterns with human feel if we want. But you know what I mean? It's cool to have this feature. So there's a note, and I'll use the shift control, and I can drag up from the middle to push it further back in time, and down from the middle to push it forward in time. So that's pushing the note backwards in time. Have a listen. And the other way pushes the note forward in time. Yeah, so that is a fantastic feature, that. Okay, so after those three note-specific sequencer controllers, we then get into the controllers for the actual instrument, and it always begins with the next in the list is the cutoff and resonance. Okay, now this is the cutoff and resonance for the master filter for the instrument. If we go down to the bottom to the edit area, here's our instrument, the tom. It's a sampled instrument. There's the master cutoff and filter, the master filter. And there's the cutoff and resonance for it. Okay. There is a physical model instrument. It has a master filter. There is an analog model instrument. It has a master filter. So all instruments, no matter what type they are, they have this master filter. There's our tom, and there's its master filter. So the next two controllers in the list are the cutoff and resonance for the master filter of the instrument. After that comes the four mix parameters of the instrument: the volume, the pan, and the auxiliary 1 and 2 master sends. Okay, and they're taken from the mixer channel for the instrument here. There's the mixer channel of the tom, and of course it's got volume, the fader, pan, and 2 auxiliary master sends to send out to the 2 auxiliary master effects. So those 4 mix parameters come next in the list after the cutoff and resonance for the master filter. And then after those 4 mix parameters, we get the last 6 parameters, and there's always 6, and these are the raw edit parameters of the actual instrument. And these are here. There's the 6 edit parameters for the sampled instrument, there's the 6 edit parameters for the physical model instrument, and there's the 6 edit parameters for the analog model instrument. And they're always different. They change according to the type of instrument, whether it's analog model, physical model, or sampled, and even within those categories the parameters, the 6 edit parameters can change again depending on what type of sound it is, whether it's a drum sound, a synth sound, an effect sound, etc. But there's always 6, and they're the last 6 controllers in our list, always, and there's always 6, and they just change according to the type of instrument. And that's the list of controllers. Okay, now there's one other thing. We go to the mixer again. There's the tom channel. Now every single mixer channel for every instrument has 2 insert effects. So if I put an insert effect on the tom, let's put a EQ. Okay, now the tom channel on the mixer has got 1 insert effect, an EQ, and back on its track, any inserted effects appear at the bottom of the list after the 6 edit parameters. There's the effect, EQ, and any of the EQ parameters can be assigned as a controller. Back to the mixer. I'll put in a second insert effect, a flanger. Okay, now this tom track on the mixer has got 2 insert effects. Go back to its track on the sequencer, there's the second effect. So any insert effects on an instrument's mixer channel, if they are present, they appear at the bottom of the controller list after the 6 main edit parameters, and you can assign any of the parameters of any of the insert effects as a controller and do controller moves. Alrighty, alright. Now, that's your list. Okay, now, the last thing to look at is there's this relationship between these pots here. Okay, 3 of them live above every instrument pad, and the channel strip pots. Okay, now let's look at these 3 dedicated pots above the instrument. Okay, now these are dedicated to the instrument, and they can be assigned to any of the parameters of the instrument. There's all the parameters. There's the 6 main edit parameters. There's the 4 mix parameters, auxiliary 1 and 2 send, the pan and the volume, and there's the master filter cutoff and resonance. So you've got the same 6 master edit parameters, the master filter parameters, and the 4 mix parameters, exactly the same as you have on the track for the instrument, except they're in a different order: cutoff, resonance, volume, pan, and auxiliaries, and the 6 master edit parameters. Okay. And then the effects, if any. So any of those parameters for the instrument can be assigned to any of the 3 pots dedicated to that instrument. Okay, so we can assign these to any parameter, and they can be moved and used to write in control moves, and you can do that from the hardware controller as well. So here's a relationship between these pots and the sequencer. We hold down control, we left click on any of these parameter pots, no matter what they're assigned to. So let's left click on the pitch while holding down control. Control, left click, and this menu appears. Choose edit motion. And we're doing this for the pitch pot. Click on edit motion. Boom. Fantastic, it jumps you straight to the sequencer, straight to the track for the instrument, with the parameter pitch pre-selected in the controller list, ready to be switched on and put in controller moves for the pitch. And now you can see the pitch control moving. Fantastic. Okay. Okay, I want to adjust the decay pot, the decay parameter for this instrument. Hold down control, left click on the decay pot, choose edit motion. It jumps me to that instrument's track with the decay parameter ready selected. I'll put in some decay. Let's put in a few extra notes. Okay, so we've got 2 active controllers now on this instrument. There they are moving. Now we know we can go to the sequencer track for that instrument, choose the pitch for example and turn it off, choose the decay and turn it off. Right, we can do that, but we can also do that from the actual pot here. There's the pitch, it's active, as is the decay. Control, left click on the pitch pot, disable the motion. It's disabled. The decay, control, left click, disable the motion. You can disable the motion of any controller pot from here. Now none of them work. They're both, if we look in the sequencer, they're both disabled, look, not playing back. Go back to the pots, control, left click, enable the motion again. Control, left click, enable the motion again. Now they're both active. Yay! So you can do that. You can jump straight to the edit window for any pot by control, left click and choosing edit motion, and you can disable any active pot. Okay, now the last thing is this channel strip. Now this channel strip, we can't change the parameters. We can't click on the names underneath. These are always fixed. This is always volume, pan, auxiliary 1 and 2 send, and the cutoff and resonance of the master filter. But this is a floating set of pots. They're assigned to whichever is the currently selected instrument. And the idea of that is, yes, I can get any of these dedicated pots for any instrument, like in this case the tom, and yes, I can change the parameter of this pot from pitch to the cutoff or resonance of the master filter, or to the auxiliary 1 and 2 send, or to the pan and the volume. But it's easier to just sort of say, well, I want to adjust the master filter for this instrument, so I just select it, and then all these pots become dedicated to this channel, and I can adjust the filter, resonance and cutoff for that instrument here, or the auxiliary 1 and 2 sends, or the pan or the volume. Okay, so now that we've selected this instrument, this set of 6 dedicated pots for those 6 dedicated parameters are assigned to this instrument. So again, control, left click on the cutoff pot, edit motion. It takes me straight to the sequencer track for this selected instrument. Control, left click, edit motion. Straight to the sequencer track for that selected instrument with cutoff pre-selected, ready to put in my controller move. So I'll put in some cutoff. Bing bang bong, go back to there and you'll see the cutoff control move. Same with the pan. Control, left click, edit motion, takes me straight to the sequencer track for the selected instrument with pan pre-selected, put in my pan. Go back and you'll see both these move. Now they'll move as long as they're assigned to the currently selected instrument, because this is the currently selected instrument. But as soon as I choose a different instrument, these pots are now dedicated to this instrument, which hasn't got any controller moves, so they'll stop moving. But as soon as I reselect this instrument, these 6 pots become dedicated to this instrument again, and they pick up the controls written in to the control track for this instrument, and they start moving again. Again, I can turn them off from here. Control, left click, disable the motion for the cutoff. Control, left click, disable the motion for the pan. They stop moving, and they have, sure enough, been turned off here. Pan is disabled, cutoff disabled, right? So there you go. That's the relationship between the channel strip pots and the dedicated control pots for the instrument, for the selected instrument. and the sequencer track for that instrument and the controllers. There you go. That's your pattern sequencer. Okay. Pattern sequencer. And I'll tell you what, it is absolutely brilliant, this pattern sequencer, I've got to say. You know, we know what the pattern sequencers are like in Cubase and Logic and Sonar and all those proprietary sequencers, or whatever you want to call them, but it is quite it happens quite often that with these smaller types of softwares, with these dedicated sequencers, sometimes the sequencer's design is brilliant, you know, things like Rebirth and that, you know, but let me tell you, one of the best sequencers ever designed, ever, was Orion. It's still available for sale. It just, you know, it came out, people started to buy it, and then Reason came along and kind of wiped it out, really, but it's still working and still for sale. But let me tell you, Orion sequencer is one of the greatest sequencers ever created. It's superb. And this Spark sequencer is very similar to that. I have to say, it is a superb sequencer. Absolutely brilliant. And of course, remember, anything you write in, any patterns you create for individual instruments can be dragged off as a MIDI file. Yeah. Yeah, so it is a brilliant sequence, as I say, and once you've done your patterns and your control moves, you can drag off those individual tracks as MIDI files for each instrument individually, but also down at the bottom, and we're going to look at this next, we're going to look at these bottom areas next, the studio, the mixer and the library, but in the library area, this is the currently selected and loaded project. Here's all the patterns. I can drag a pattern from the project as a MIDI file. This is the complete pattern A1 as a MIDI file. Just drag any pattern away from the pattern list here. That's a pattern, a MIDI pattern of the entire pattern A1 in this project, and that's pattern A2, the entire pattern. So absolutely brilliant. So there you go, Spark's pattern sequencer. It's really good, and that's that.